welcome to TV Guys. In order to play, there are three clauses that you have to agree to. Clause 1, a player is not allowed to voluntarily quit the episode. Clause 2, a player who refuses to watch the episode will be eliminated. Clause 3, the games may be terminated upon a majority vote.
Wait a second. I'm not Korean.
Hey everyone, welcome to TV Guys. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we are here to talk about the Korean sensation sweeping the nation. No, not that K-pop band that I keep forgetting their name of. We're talking about Squid Game. And we're now in the middle of December. So if you are one of those who went out and did some Black Friday shopping, you already survived your very own version of Squid Games. Congratulations. You did it.
Hopefully with less stabbing, but you never know these days.
I mean, it is Black Friday. If you're not doing a little bit of stabbing, are you really doing it right? Brian,
just to be clear, this podcast is not condone or encourage stabbing.
It also doesn't not condone or encourage stabbing.
I think we do not condone stabbing.
The world's falling apart.
Legal
Maybe
purposes.
we have to. Yeah, for legal purposes. I guess we don't. I guess our position is stabbing not so good. Whatever. Killjoy. Brian, you seem like the type of person that you do a lot of online ordering for your Christmas shopping. Is that right?
Depends on what it is. Actually, I if it's kids, I would much rather just go to a store and just like see what catches my eye and just buy that way. But for adults and teenagers, online is much better.
What was the term you about to use for old people?
Older people.
You're either kids or you're old. That's where we're at in life right now.
Well, like for my parents, I make them a Shutterfly calendar every year, which I haven't even started on.
And kids wouldn't like that?
Yeah, kids love a calendar.
Actually, my kids kind of really enjoy seeing, like, whenever we get Shutterfly photo albums that Angie makes. They're like, oh, these are pictures of us. This is so cool. And they'll be looking at them. I mean, it doesn't hold their attention for like every single day, but I mean, they'll pull it out randomly and just looking at them. I'm like, oh, you guys are a little more nostalgic than I realized. So It's possible.
Yeah, it is.
Hey, it could happen. Like the kids from Angels in the Outfield. Well, Squid Game, it's one of those shows that we've seen versions of this before. I mean, we've seen Hunger Games. There's a movie back in the 80s that I liked with Arnold Schwarzenegger called Running Man. That was a kind of a version of this. So, I mean, there's been this idea around before, but now it's the way that it was done this time was just something that really resonated with so many people, and it just blew up. And both of us watched it. We're like, why don't we talk about this show? So let's just do an overview. Brian, I mean, for those, we are going to be spoiling it. We're going to talk about spoilers. We're going to talk about the ending because this is a show you kind of have to, especially to talk about some of the impactful moments of the final episodes. We're going to talk about some of those spoilers. So if you haven't watched it yet, go do that. If it's just from the synopsis, I think most people who exist have heard the synopsis or know what it's about. So you at least are like, is this my type of movie or not? So you kind of know. Yeah. But if you want to watch it, now's the time.
I think that there's a very specific, follow me on this. Okay, I'm going to mention Weird Al Yankovic.
Okay. I'm in already. Whatever you say, I'm already in.
I think the best way to spoil this would be to show a picture of the main guy. Is it Ji-hun? Is that his name?
Yeah, something like that. We'll try and maybe sometimes bring up their names in it, but because it's a Korean show and we are very white, we are definitely going to mispronounce it. I mean, I think we're more likely to butcher it completely and say a different name than to even get it close to right.
This is going to be way worse than Matt saying Aisha Taylor all the time.
Worse.
Okay, anyways, have pictured that guy, and there's a very specific line in Weird Al Yankovic's Albuquerque, which is like his song where he just rambles about nothing the whole time. At one point, you know the song, Matt?
I do know this song. I know the song very well.
At one point,
I hate sauerkraut. That's all I'm really trying to say.
Yep. But no, the line after the character has just been in a car crash or a plane crash, and everybody died except for me, which is basically Squid Game.
What a great line. There's another one. Oh, one of my favorite lines of that song, I know now you got me stuck on it, was the, hey, you can't take that snorkel, or you can't take that snorkel's been just like a snorkel to me.
When you said favorite line, that's what came to my mind.
I also like when he asks for all these donuts, it's like, all we have right now is a box of half-starved crazed weasels. All right, I'll take that.
We'll do another episode breaking down that song. We probably won't. But
no, we won't. That is such a weird. It's like 12 minutes, and he just goes on and on. It's like he tells this long story, and there's such little actual singing in it.
See, if the reason we haven't done an episode about the Muppets is because we don't have the audience for it, we definitely don't have the audience for Weird Al's Albuquerque.
Which is a darn shame, because Weird Al is amazing, and Albuquerque is a triumph, a tour de force of musical ability.
All right, how do we transition into actually talking about Squid Game now?
Well, so let's talk about our initial feelings about the show. I know when we first when I first talked about Squid Game to you, I think the way you described it was that it was like a really dark show. And the way that you kind of said it, it made it seem like it was like, oh, I don't know if I like it so much because it has heavy subject matter. Where did you land with this show on how you would describe it to people?
Yeah, I mean, it is very dark. I feel like you have to be kind of into that kind of like horror, people are dying all the time, gruesome kind of thing, which normally I'm not. Like I'm not a big horror fan. This isn't my kind of thing. Normally, I started watching it because my son wanted to start watching it, so we watched it a little bit together, and then even later on, I just finished it on my own. And it's compelling because they suck you in with these characters, because you know that you want, like, it's kind of like we're rooting for Survivor, because like they have to work together, but there's only going to be one winner. Only instead of just getting voted out, they get killed.
Yes, just like real Survivor.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, that's what happens, right? They snuff the torch and then they go back and then they get snuffed.
Mm-hmm. And it really plays with your emotions the most when they get to the marble game, because up until then, these people kind of been able to go amongst themselves, like they have their own little separate groups. But in this game, they're paired up, and then they find out that you have to specifically try to outmaneuver, outsmart your opponent to get
outlast, outplay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Your opponent,
knowing that your opponent is going to get literally shot in the head as soon as you win.
Yeah, and
so that brought down to some really, heartbreaking moments. Like there's one where Ali got tricked with the marbles, turning into, he swapped out the marbles for the rocks, and just that look of betrayal right before he gets shot.
Yeah,
or like the one girl who purposely lost so that the other girl could win, and then there's the whole thing with the old man, supposedly at the time like losing his mind.
Yep,
it's just really like, what's going to happen with this?
Yeah, that was such a good episode. I definitely want to come back to that because I think that episode deserves a lot of conversation. I want to back up for just a minute, and I want to compare this show to something like Breaking Bad. I feel like Breaking Bad is equal in terms of talking about a dark show. Mm-hmm. I feel like the subject matter is just right there. And I know you and I both love Breaking Bad. So my question then kind of becomes, with a show like this, when we're talking about, it's really dark, why do we feel like maybe that is a little bit of a turnoff for the show versus Breaking Bad when it might not be so much that way? Or am I completely missing your interpretation here?
No, I think it's because, there's a lot of gruesome deaths in Breaking Bad. There is, mm-hmm. But it's kind of not as much guaranteed as it is with Squid Game. Because like going into this episode, there's another game, you're going to see like a lot of deaths, whereas you don't have those deaths in every episode of Breaking Bad. And there's a lot more people you can root for in Breaking Bad as well.
Sure. I think a part of it for me is I think that the themes of this show hit closer to home than people would like, because mm-hmm. it has a lot to say about, especially because it's Korean, that South Korea definitely has this issue of class systems and the wealth versus the needy, and the feeling of there's these wealthy people that are just playing games with people in poverty and their lives. Now, we definitely have that in America for sure. I think in any nation, you're going to have that, whether it's third world or first world. You have people in power that are, in a way, playing with people's lives and making decisions that decide the fate of lives of people that aren't in power to make those decisions themselves. And so it's a nice way that this show shines light on that and kind of already helps us buy into it. And the other thing, I mean, there's a couple different themes, but another theme that it also has is our penchant for being entertained by evil, and so to speak. I mean, we like to see stuff like that. Like the fact that Squid Game has an audience it has also proves the point of Squid Game, that there are people that want to see that. I mean, like we excuse away, like, okay, this isn't really happening. If it was really happening, we wouldn't watch it. And it's like, probably not. There'd probably be a lot more outrage, but isn't there a part of us that is like the Hunger Games, or that is like this, that is entertained by things that we know we shouldn't be entertained by? And I think that is something that it shines a mirror on ourselves of, like, I don't really want to confront that with myself. How much of myself would be okay of watching people go through pain in order for my own amusement or entertainment? I really hope that I'm not in that camp.
No, but I think there's obviously a difference between that, which that is bad on its own, but I don't think as many people would be like, yay, I'm going to watch real people actually like get murdered in front of me. Like that's a different level.
You're right. It definitely is. I think that there's that slippery slope, though, that it could, if our society changes in such a negative way progressively to get to that point, maybe we could one day be there.
Like even in this game, it's always only to be televised to like those few like rich people who were controlling the whole thing.
Yeah.
And like in the Hunger Games, it wasn't so much like that. It was more so the capital, the people that were watching that. All the people of the districts, they were watching the screens, but that's just because they were kind of forced to.
Yeah.
And like nobody in any of the districts wanted to participate, but it was like, participate or we'll kill you kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it too, is the elite status of viewing people as less than human, that when you view them as less than human, it is what allows you to then see something like this and be like, oh, it's just a game. I don't view them as human, so if they die, so what? That whole idea.
Mm.
So let's go ahead and go back to the Marbles episode, because the Marbles episode, to me, it's the best in the series. I mean, it ends strong. Some people had different opinions about the ending, but I think Marbles is definitely where it peaked.
Yeah.
Best episode because of the emotional weight of everything that happens. And you didn't even bring up, and I know they're not main characters, but it was the idea of the married couple that they go into that.
Oh, yeah.
And just like you don't see any of their game that they play, but you're left with the implication of it.
Yeah, at the end, because we didn't even know, because like this is a show kind of like Lost, where you have your main core, but then there's all those background people, and somebody just mentioned that in the end, like, oh, like this guy had to kill his wife, because what happened was you had to choose your partner, and you're people thinking, okay, we're going to play this game together as partners. No, it was again like you get a sack of marbles, and at the end, whoever has all the marbles in whatever game you choose outside of physical violence is the winner.
Yep.
And so like I don't even know how. I mean, at that point, you almost just go like chance or something. I don't know.
Yeah, if I put myself in that circumstance, I feel like I would rather die than to be the one, because it's like the winner of it. If it's something like that, where it's a close friend or a loved one or something like that, the winner walks away with that death hanging over them for the rest of their life. Like they are traumatized. And sure, people can get over traumatizing things. People do that all the time.
Yeah.
But it would be so hard to walk away and be like, because of my actions, my wife is dead. That sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. That was an interesting little spin on that. And then that guy, because then the guy who came out of that, he ended up hanging himself, didn't he?
Yep. Yep. So that's why I also really like what they did with Cho Sang Woo and Gi-hun, the main guy and the business guy who betrayed Ali. That the main guy, the idea of that game is kind of like, with the main guy, what would you do to stay alive? Would you lie to this guy? That's like, how would you explain away when this guy that you've befriended and have in a way been like your best friend there, suddenly you have to kill him essentially. And you're able to do it by manipulating his mental deficiency, his Alzheimer's that he has. And it's like, do you do that? Do you reason away as like, well, he doesn't remember anyway, he's not conscious, or he's lived his life, or whatever reasoning. I'm sure if that,
or he was close to death anyways, wasn't he, like terminally ill?
Yep. If you peek into Gi-hun's head, I'm sure you would see those thoughts. And so, like, that again shines that mirror. If you're like me, when you watch things, that's what I do. Is I look at like, what would I do? Would I in that situation do that, or would I say no? I'm going to be honest. This, and so I really liked when they flipped it on its head of like he actually remembered and knew what he was doing the whole time, and that the old man was just like letting him have that shot back. And I'm like, oh, that is really sweet until the final twist.
Yeah.
But in that moment, you're just like, oh my gosh, that tugged at my heartstrings.
I think the difference between those two guys is that the main guy, he struggled with that. You could tell he had emotional reactions to it. Whereas I think the other guy, I think he was friends with Ali. I think if he didn't have to, he wouldn't have killed him. But I think he immediately decided, like, okay, I'm going to kill him, no problem, and I'm going to walk away from this. Like, I think it was a much easier decision for him.
He's going back to Breaking Bad, as funny as it is, Sang Woo is like the Saul Goodman of Breaking Bad. Not a Better Call Saul, but we see the Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad is the best description, like a cockroach, that no matter what, he's going to be the one that survives. And that is Sang Woo's idea in how he treats everyone. Like, that's how he worked in business. It's always about number one. No matter what, I'm going to come out of this on top, no matter what I have to do. And he has like the decorum that you have to have as a human being to exist in society. But that, again, another mirror for people is like, how many people have that decorum, but when the cards are on the table, that you would do whatever it takes. And you would be that cockroach to, I'm going to survive no matter what.
Yeah.
That's why this show, to me, is as good as it is because these characters do a really good job of bringing out ideas and bringing out like the what would you do, and allowing you to see different sides. Because you have just the normal villain that whatever his name is, the gangster guy. He's very clearly, obviously bad, evil villain, whatever. And so he's so easy to root against, but more often in real life, you bump into people that are more like Sang Woo than they are like this gangster villain guy. And that makes a really scary villain.
Yeah. And I think it's also, we also got to mention the intriguing and great acting character of the character of, what's her name? The main girl who ends up being the final three.
Yeah. Junho.
Junho,
no, that's the police. Se-byuk. Yep.
Yeah.
I've got the character list in front of me. Again, these are probably mispronouncing it.
Because she was always a loner. Like, she never wanted to trust anybody. And she even says when they're making the barricade, when they realize, hey, we can kill each other in the dorm, and they don't care. Like, she even said, like, I don't trust any of you. But you can see, like, peeking underneath, there is that vulnerability underneath, which anybody would have in that scenario.
Yeah. And it's something that gets a little lost in translation for us versus South Korea is that she's a North Korean defector. And so the dynamic of North versus South Korea, and South Korea being a free country, being so close to North Korea, that is just this dictatorship that tyrant is running, that really adds that element to her character. And again, it's one of those things that it shines a light and a mirror for people that are, it gets a little lost for us because we don't have that right next door to us. But for South Koreans to have a North Korean represented there of, what did she come from? So how does that upbringing affect her everyday life?
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. So
Um,
speaking of it being Korean, one negative for me is it is a hard thing to do. Like the themes translate. I I think the English dub is tough. It's hard for me to always stay engaged with the acting because I think the acting, like you can see on their faces and the way they express things, that the actors are doing a great job. But then the vocal actors, they struggle because you're completely changing from one language to another, and the pauses that you take in sentences are going to be different when you're speaking one language versus the other. So I don't like put a ton of blame on these voice actors, but it definitely does pull me out of it when there's like they stop in the middle of a sentence of a pause and then just like continue on like 3 seconds later. Like no normal person would speak like that. So it pulls me out of it, and that's my biggest weakness that I had with a Squid Game.
I get that, but I thought the voices they had matched what you would expect these people to sound like really well, and
Mm-hmm.
so I was okay with that.
I've brought that up to a number of people, and some people agree with you, and some people I've talked to agree with me. So I'm curious what you guys would say. Like that, for me, that pulled me out of it too much, and I really wish it wouldn't have. But
So besides marbles, what are some of the other standout games you think that were really compelling to watch?
I thought that initially that red light, green light was
Yeah.
just a fantastic set piece to start off with.
And you know that giant doll wasn't CGI. That's an actual real doll you can like visit in Korea.
I believe it.
And
It seemed like practical effect.
well, and that game was also the one that really introduced them to the stakes because they didn't really understand what was going on until it got to the game itself. Until that first time when someone realized, oh, this person in front of me is actually dead.
Yeah, I think the weakest for me was the tug of war game.
Yeah. The only thing about the tug of war game is if you look back, there's the little hint about the old man controlling everything because he wasn't shackled to the rope like everybody else was.
Really?
Everybody else, if they've shown this, they have little padlocks on their arms that prevents them from like disconnecting from the rope. But when at the end, when they're all laying there exhausted, it pans over them. You can clearly see he does not have padlocks on his wrists.
No way.
Yeah.
Speaking of foreshadowing, in the second episode when they all go off, and it shows their life after that first game before they all decide to come back, they foreshadow how each of the other players are going to die. Where the mob boss guy, Doksu, he jumps off of a bridge when he has that altercation on it, so he falls at long distance. Se-byuk, when she's talking to, I think the lone guy that she talks about like slitting his throat open, which is how she died. So and then of course we don't see any of the old guy because of course we don't see any of the old guy. He's just existing. So it's like they do a good job of just like, hey, by the way, this is how they die. And then
Sang-woo is laying in the bathtub, which is like he's laying in the rain when he dies.
That's right. I was like, what was it with Sang-woo? I knew that they had a foreshadowing. I couldn't remember, so that's why I didn't include him.
Yeah. Definitely red light, green light. I don't know. I wasn't super compelled by the honeycomb one, although it was interesting. But
yeah,
it was like
second weakest.
You think they would have caught on to the people using the lighters? I thought for sure they would get caught, but they didn't.
Yeah, that was another stretch for me. I mean, with any good media, you'll still have plot holes, and I felt like maybe that wasn't a plot hole, but it definitely was a little bit of a stretch.
So how long did it take you to realize that in the dorm area, all the games were foreshadowed with little cartoons on the walls?
It took me until after the show was over to realize that, because then I see other people point that out. I'm like, were those on there the whole time? And then you look back and yep, they were adorning the walls even from the very beginning.
I noticed it at the very end because they keep removing dorms when people die, so there's less and less crowded. When they got to the feast with the final 3, then that was in the dorm area. And then I thought, oh, they added this onto the walls to like commemorate what you guys have done. And then it kind of something you do. I looked at afterwards. I'm like, oh no, wait, those were there the whole time. But when they had all the big bed metal frame pieces, that was covering up a lot of them. So as more and more people died, they became more and more visible.
Yeah, actually, I think now that you say that rings a bell. I feel like that might have been the same thing for me. Now that I think about it, it's been a month since I've seen it, so it's, Real quick, my second favorite thing. So my favorite thing about this show so far was the story. The story was really good. Themes were really good as well. Second favorite part that I thought made this show really good was I thought the costume design was on point. It's very simple for all of the actors who are in the game. You know, just that tracksuit with the white tennis shoes, like very simple, obvious thing. But then I love also the guards. The look of the guards was really cool, and it's. I think what was amazed me so much was again just how simple it was, but how much it communicated.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like they're so imposing by having just those little PlayStation buttons on their face, but you can't see underneath it. I just thought all of that was really well done. I thought the sets were pretty cool too, but I really like the costume designs a lot.
Yeah. And it also brings you to the mindset of like, we know the mentality or the motivation for the players is this money. What's the motivation for all the guards? Because you figured they can't be getting paid that well, and to the point where like they know that even them, anything goes wrong, like the people in charge don't have any problem of wasting any of the guards. And really, like at the end, you guys have seen so much. Are they really going to let all of them go? Like, what's the motivation to get them doing as much as they are?
Well, it seems like they're just part of this infrastructure, that it's like this isn't the first Squid Games that has happened. And we definitely get confirmation of that with the police officer's storyline. We know that that's for sure the fact. But as the series goes on in this first season, we get to see a wider scope of this isn't just a one-off thing. This is an established system that's been going on. And so, I mean, that kind of leads us into a little like what's going to happen now in season 2, because season 2 is coming. I thought I had read something that said that a season 2 is already in the can and was going to be in December this year, but I think that got walked back and that is incorrect. But a season 2 is coming, and obviously so they did set it up really well for that. And so you're going to see them explore more of the Squid Games. I think we're going to get like Gi-hun is going to be the new Jun-ho police officer. He's going to be the new one that's working on the inside, trying to bring it down and trying to figure out everything that's going on. But we'll also get introduced to a new cast of Squid Game members. I think that's what we're going to see in season 2.
But then you think we're going to see the same games, or do you think we're going to see new games?
I really hope we see new games. I think that the writing is good enough that they would bring in new games, that they wouldn't do the same ones over.
I think they might see hints of I don't think we see a whole new sequence as long as they did for Red Light, Green Light, but I could see maybe seeing like just a couple minutes of the Red Light, Green Light being happen again, because like it's like we know what's happening, we're established. Okay, this is happening again, but if they don't linger on it.
Sure. I also had this feeling kind of when I was watching it, that I had this feeling of like when they're talking about these games, that they have this large repertoire that they choose from, and that they tailor what games they're going to choose from based on what they're seeing from the contestants in the games. So, I mean, they might start off with like Red Light, Green Light is that great equalizer game to start off just to eliminate a large amount. And then they see, okay, who do we have left? What is going to work best? And go from there.
Yep. So also I've been thinking, so the woman who was kind of like the antagonistic woman who for a while was teamed up with like the villain guy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep. Minyo,
yeah. So she killed herself and Doksu in the bridge game. She like held onto him and leaned back so they would both fall to their deaths. Uh-huh. So what do you think brought her to kill herself? I could see her being so angry that she want to kill him, but what made her decide like, okay, I'm done too?
I think that it is. I think it's honestly like again another mirror for maybe women in abusive relationships that don't feel like they can get out. That they feel like if they're cornered and they are ready to be done, that the response is going to be, I'm taking you down. If you're going to hurt me, I'm going to make sure you hurt too, that sort of thing. And so from what I'm watching is it's about taking the power back. Sure, she dies, but she's going to go out on her own terms, that she has been, you don't get her backstory, so you don't see what has led up to this, but you see her in the games of constantly trying to take power in the game and never being given that respect or honor at all, and constantly brushed aside. And for her to say, well, I'm going to decide my final act, and I am finally going to have the power to make a difference in these games, I think that was enough motivation for her to be able to do that. Because I mean, she didn't want to just like get in a fight with him and try and survive. She wanted to make sure he's going down.
Yeah, I get that. That makes sense, because we definitely get kind of I don't know if is it explicitly stated or just implied that she's been in abusive relationships.
It never was stated, but again, like even her relationship with Deok-su is an abusive one, and so you get that feeling that maybe she might have. This is another one that she's had. Apart from that.
And we had a kind of a fake out with her, because going into the Marvel game, there was an odd number of people, so she was the odd one out. But I kind of was suspicious, like, are they really going to kill this at this point a pretty significant character just like that? It just seemed kind of like an anticlimactic death. So I wasn't like utterly shocked when she was alive at the end of it, but I wasn't necessarily expecting her to come back either.
Yeah, it did seem like, because of the subject matter of the episode, it seemed like in that episode you had three mains who died, with her and then Ali and the old man, I forget his name. And then
there's also the other girl, but she was kind of more of a secondary character.
Yeah, exactly. She was a secondary character that you didn't even know until the tug of war game.
Yeah, exactly, because they needed more people.
Yep.
Yeah. Whatever happened to the praying guy? Did he die in the bridge game?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. I think he was the first in the bridge game, because I thought it was him that, like, he went first before everyone else.
You know, there was all that debate about, should I pick number 1 or 15? Even before knowing what it was, I think the obvious choice for me would be 15, because then you get to see what's going on ahead of you. So you you get to prepare. I thought, I don't see it. I mean, there probably are scenarios where being last would be worse, but I think in most of these games, having foresight definitely increases your survival.
It does, and obviously that's the right choice for that game. But there is also the other possibility of what if it's a resources finite game, and so if you're at the end, you don't get the resource that people are trying to get.
Oh yeah, I suppose that could be true.
I mean, I think that is such a clever thing with the game of, just hiding what the actual game is going to be. And so when you are making your choice, you might not always know what your choice is, but then it's revealed to you and you realize how bad or how good of a choice you made. Because every game except for the first one, they all made choices that led them into the game, whether it was they're paired up with or the symbol that they picked for the sugar honeycomb, or the order that they went.
Yeah. And then I think we also got to talk about the big reveal that the old man is actually in charge of it all.
Yep. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot to say about that, because I wish that the big reveal was more like oh, that's so cool. I kind of was just like, okay.
Yeah. So Charlie, my son, he saw it coming. I didn't really see it coming, because I believe that he died in the Marvel episode.
Yeah.
And then when it came back later, but yes, it was interesting, and that would have been an interesting thing to going forward. But obviously now he's actually dead.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't quite even understand his bet that he made of the guy getting helped on the street.
Yeah, I'd have to rewatch it.
Yeah, it's been a little bit since I've seen it. And I just remember being a little confused during that scene of, wait, what is this conversation they're having? So I think the weight of the moment was lost on me, because there's something lost in translation, or I just wasn't tuned in to what was going on well enough. So that was a scene that I think I missed the point of, unfortunately. Yeah. But I did see the twist coming of the Jun-Ho's brother being the head guy that's running everything now. And
I didn't see that coming until they were like across the water. At that point, I'm like, okay, I kind of see it then, but I didn't see it earlier than that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, my whole thing is like, he's looking for his brother, and it's anticlimactic to be like, oh, by the way, your brother died. It is very fitting for story-wise for them to be still alive. So is it one of the people in the games, or is it the one step further and it's someone behind the scenes? So it made sense with how much they hyped up this main guy for him to be the brother.
Well, we don't even know. Was he able to send anything to his cop unit, or do we not know?
I don't think we had confirmation of that. We also didn't see actually Jun Ho physically die. Some people were like, "Oh, he might be back for next season." I'm like, I feel like that's a cop out. He gets shot and he falls off a cliff. He's probably dead, but you don't need to see him hit the rocks in order to know for sure he's dead.
But then again, we also live in a world where 24 brought Tony Almeida back.
that reference is lost on me.
Okay, very quick. They definitely killed him. And then like 3 seasons later, they made up some bullcrap excuse. Oh, no, this is what really happened. That's why Tony's not dead. It's like, no, you just wanted to bring the actor back.
I loved the movie Skyfall, the James Bond one, but in the cold open, they kill Bond. He gets shot. He falls off of a train that's on this, he falls 50, 60 feet into water. I don't care if you're falling into water. It's still going to hurt after you got shot. And then after the credits roll, all of a sudden Bond's fine. And there's no explanation. I think they realized like, oh, we can't explain how he survived. So we're just not going to.
Well,
and that's a route to take.
Don't you know the rule? If you fall into water, you get frozen for 70 years and become an Avenger.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love the movie, but that part I'm like, okay, that's really stupid.
Yeah.
I get it's more about M and showing like, oh, I don't care. I'll sacrifice my guys, whatever, but still, I thought that there was better ways to do that. Anyway, back to Squid Game.
I think that's all I really had to talk about.
Yeah, same here. We hit on some stuff for the season 2. We hit on what we liked about this show. Is there anything that we left out, guys? Let us know. We'd love to revisit this, and if there's some foreshadowing, I think this is a show that does a really good job of foreshadowing, even the few things that we pointed out. And so I'm sure there's stuff that we missed. So let us know if there's other things that we missed that we didn't see coming. But let's jump into trivia.
So last week we both had trivia questions about Archer and Saved by the Bell, respectively. So my trivia question was about Saved by the Bell and why Elizabeth Berkley, who played Jessie, was not part of the main cast in the wedding finale, the wedding movie in Vegas, and why she only made a little cameo at the end. Well, that was because at the time Elizabeth Berkley was filming Showgirls.
Yep, which apparently is a terrible movie. I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's awful, and I've heard it's explicit for really no reason.
Yeah, that's what I've heard as well.
Well, there you go. All right. So in Archer, there's a character named Ray, and Ray looks like another one of the voice actors for the show. It's not the voice actor who voices Ray. Instead, the voice actor that he looks like is Lucky Yates, who voices Dr. Krieger. So if you pull up a picture of Lucky Yates, you can see they did base the look of Ray off of Lucky Yates' profile. It looks like he's brunette in real life, and so they changed it to blonde, but still he's got that same goatee, that same facial structure, all of that. So
yep,
there you go. What do we got for trivia this week?
Well, I have a very vague trivia because this isn't one where like, oh, like this actor was in this, because they're all pretty much just Korean actors that we don't know anything about. But
unless you're a big Korean cinephile.
Yep. One thing I was reading, and there's a specific reason that the playground set was made so big during the Honeycomb Game. So do you know why they made the playground so big during the Honeycomb Game?
Because they had really big tools.
Yep. That you just spoiled it. Believe it or not, there is another answer. So if you know that.
No way.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Well, speaking of big tools, Brian and I will be back next week with one of our True Christmas episodes. Next week, this is fun. We are going to cast A Christmas Carol using TV characters. So which TV character would play Scrooge? Which TV character would play Bob Cratchit? And Brian promised he will not use more than one Muppet. So
I didn't promise that, but yeah, I think that is a fair one.
Kermit should play Cratchit and Miss Piggy should play Mrs. Cratchit.
It's not just going to be a retelling of Muppet Christmas Carol.
I think there should be a narrator. Let's make him Gonzo. Brian, you're banned from this episode. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, and just we should make Jacob Marley two people. That way we can make him Statler and Waldorf.
Exactly.
Although
Marley and Marley. Whoa.
That music, the movie does have a great soundtrack, though.
I love the "It Feels Like Christmas" song. I listen to that song. That's one of my must listens to for Christmas music. The rest of the songs aren't bad, but that one, like, really, as the kids say, that song slaps.
Yeah. Oh, I have next week's trivia already thought out.
Oh my gosh, look at you. You're great. So we'll have back-to-back Christmas episodes, get you in the Christmas season if you're not already there. So thanks for listening. Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.
Red light.
Green light. This game sucks.
You don't get shot on the green light.
Oh. Well, I yelled green light before they did because I wanted to just move. And I thought that's how it worked.
Okay.
Apparently not.
All right. I'm leaving all this in, by the way.
All of it. All of it is going to be the end card.
Music's going to hit now.